Hello, friends. Welcome aboard the Round Trip Stories podcast, where we share stories of moving around the world and back again, reflecting on the lessons we've learned along the way. My name is Melissa.
And my name is Tracy, and we are excited to welcome you to this Round Trip Stories advice episode. After 2 seasons of interviews and 10 guests, we want to share our guests' combined wisdom and advice for what helps when living abroad and during the transition back after living overseas. We hope you've heard all of our guest stories, and if you haven't, go back and listen.
At the end of each interview, we ask our guests for one last word of advice or encouragement for our listeners. Today, you'll hear all of their answers, including practical advice for families, permission to take it slow, and metaphors that give us a new perspective on that sometimes rough return to our home countries. We hope you treasure these jewels of wisdom as much as we do. Podcast flight crew, prepare for takeoff.
Melissa, it was such a good idea to take all of the excerpts to that last question about if there's any advice and wisdom guests could give our listeners. So great idea, Melissa, and I am really looking forward to hearing all of these pieces together in one episode.
Yes, we've gotten such good advice from all of our different guests, and it's really neat to kind of see them all at once. So we're kind of zooming out and looking at all of these episodes and looking at the advice, and are so happy that we can share it all with you together in this one episode.
We get the privilege of hearing everybody's stories and hearing their wisdom, and we're always delighted to hear people's take on their experiences abroad and coming back, because we've all had that shared experience, but then we look at these experiences through different eyes. We're from different countries, different parts of the world, and so it's just such a blessing to hear people's artistic view or advice to us and to our listeners, and these gifts that they want to give to you.
Yeah. And and don't worry, this isn't our last episode ever. This is just our last episode for right now before we take a break for the summer. So don't worry, we'll be back in a couple of months for season 3. But in these last 2 seasons, so we think of a season as like a semester.
Because we're teachers.
Yes, because we're teachers. We have interviewed people that came from Ghana, from Mexico, from the United States, from New Zealand, from where else have people
Ecuador?
originated? Yep, from Ecuador, Trinidad, and Eileen, moved to Sweden from California, but before that she was from Indonesia. So people have gone to Sweden and the United States and China and Peru, and where else? What am I missing? Oh, Japan. We've had Japan.
Yes.
Oh, and Kenya.
Oh, yes.
So it's neat to hear how there's so much similarity in what we have learned just by moving abroad. A lot of the lessons apply in every situation.
Yes, and we also we have a lot of educators, but there are also business people and scientists,
students and doctors,
and a Disney manager. So
yes,
and mothers and singles, men and women. So we think that you'll really enjoy listening to our podcast if you haven't, but also especially this episode and hearing all these jewels that we have to share. And we think and we really appreciate all of our guests because they are entrusting their stories to us and to share with you. So let's get started.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Melissa, we're going to start hearing what you had to say during your interview about going to Peru in episode 3 and returning to the United States in episode 4. Everybody, this is Melissa Enns, bilingual teacher, passionate learner, leader, and lover of people, and mother of 3. I love this metaphor about jumping into the cold water.
My last little tidbit of advice or encouragement is just to know that it's okay and it's normal for transitions to be hard and messy and exhausting. That getting used to new cultures or coming back to your old culture, knowing everything about culture shock or transition shock or, culture adjustment, whatever they want to call it these days. Knowing everything about it doesn't mean it's not going to be hard. Just like knowing that a pool of water or a lake is icy cold and telling yourself that ahead of time doesn't mean that when you jump in, it's not going to take your breath away. Jumping into a new culture or jumping back into an old culture is going to take your breath away, even if you're prepared mentally, but that's okay. And you'll survive. And it's, that's that we need people and not to try to do these things alone, but that, you can do it. It'll take time, but you can do it.
Yeah. Sí se puede.
That's right. Amen. So hopefully you'll remember our guest from season 1, Kat Borba. Kat is a teacher, supporter of overseas missions, and mother of 3. In episode 12, she shared about moving from California to Japan. And in episode 13, she shared her advice about how to be present in the present while savoring the past.
So I was thinking about, that idea of the yay and the yuck and living in that paradox. Our time in Japan was wonderful and it was hard. And our time in America is wonderful in different ways and hard in different ways. And sometimes I can feel that wistfulness of like, oh man, if I was in Japan, everything would be perfect right now. Or I only wish that this were the context I was in right now. I was like, you know what? There are wonderful things about where I am right now. And so one thing that I do every so often when I start to feel that, like, oh man, why, if only we were still there in Japan, I stop and I think, okay, if I were in Japan right now, what would I be missing? And like dumb things, like not like people and people I love and stuff like that. No, like what would I be missing right now? I couldn't have cheese. They don't really have good cheese in Japan. I love cheese and weird variety and charcuterie. And it's amazing. I love it. They don't really have that there. And so that's something I really enjoy. And I enjoy being able to have it here. So you know what? That's what I'm going to do. This weekend, I'm going to have some brie and some almonds and it's going to be fantastic. Right?
Yeah.
And I used to do that same thing to myself when I was in Japan. Okay, I'm really missing America right now. And I have to stop and force myself to think, what can I do right now that I couldn't do if I were in America right now? Okay, well, I can ride the subway into downtown and take a nice walk and eat a cream puff from Beard Papa's. Okay, that's what I'm going to do on my day off this week. I'm going to go do that fun activity that I can only do right now because in this time and in this season, that's available to me. And so making the most of those opportunities in front of you. It doesn't take away the longing. It doesn't take away the sadness of being away from this relationship or that relationship on either end of the ocean. But helping to recognize, okay, where's the yay in this? Where's the good thing that I can only have right now?
I think that is really valuable because, like you said, it doesn't take away the hard. It doesn't take away the grief, but it can help us get through it when we also take time to notice and embrace the things that we do have available to us that we can be thankful for, and not to dismiss the hard, not to dismiss or ignore it, but to remember that that's not all that there is.
This next excerpt is from Eileen Hendratna and her stories about going to Sweden in episode 9 and returning to the U.S. in episode 10. Eileen is an Indonesian American agricultural scientist who feels most at home in international communities. She gives one of my favorite metaphors about how to use the gifts we've been given in our time abroad to paint a new work of art where we are now.
So one is that where we are is God's gift, and on the other side of the coin, there is God's purpose. So it's just up to us how we develop this gift, like what God has entrusted us with. And the second thing is that it takes time, that you need to be nice to yourself. give yourself permission if you feel down, or you feel like you don't belong, or because it just takes time to accept and resettle. And then when the time comes, it will be clear to you that, okay, this is what God is giving me, and there is a purpose for that, and fine, and God will provide the resources that we need to develop that. So I will liken it like it's like being tasked to create a painting. So you are placed in this environment, and these are the tools and the colors that you can make a painting with. And it's up to you, like how you want to make that painting.
Jaime Aparicio is a Mexican entrepreneur, family guy, and lover of all things international. In episode 6, he shared about moving from Mexico to California to go to school. Since then, he has made several other international moves, and in episode 7, he shared his wisdom about being flexible and unafraid of change.
I think that one thing that I would share is how people should look at change, right? Because change sometimes comes unexpectedly, because there's a job opportunity for you, and you just have to move away or have to do things differently. And sometimes change is something that we look for, right? Because we want to experience new things. And I think that embracing change and not being afraid of it is something that I would tell people to invest time and energy in doing, in embracing change and not being afraid of it. When change comes to us rather than when we look for it, I think a lot of the times people create horror stories about what things could be like, and those horror stories are very much associated with the things that we're not willing to tolerate, or we think that we're not willing to tolerate. And I think that not getting ahead of yourself and imagining how bad things could be is a good practice, because I think that something I've learned is that things are hardly ever as bad as you think they're going to be. Things are always worse in your imagination than in reality when it comes to these types of situations, obviously. And I believe that people learn that things are a lot more manageable, and that we as people have far more internal resources than we think we have. And so, not getting ahead of ourselves and not creating horror stories about what things could be like, and giving ourselves an opportunity to live through that change and adjusting to it, and leveraging on those internal resources that we do have, whether we know it or not. I think it's something that I would encourage people to think about.
Next, we have Melinda Howe, who shares her stories about moving to China in episode 15 and returning to the U.S. in episode 16. Melinda is a Disney character brand manager, ministry leader, amazing baker, and mom of 4. She shares practical tips for returning with children and helping them to adjust, but keeping the memories at the same time.
I think especially for people with children, it's talk about the time that they spent with your children. Ask them what some of their favorite memories were. Don't just move on.
Mm-hmm.
Sit with them where they're at. Hear and remember and talk about it. If you can, visit some of their friends. But at the same time, don't let them go, it was way better before. Help them to adjust to new normal and to celebrate good things about both places.
I love your suggestion about talking to our kids about what they were like when they were little, living in this and such country. I have photo albums from each year. I make a yearly photo album, and my kids really go back and look. And as parents, we have such sharp memories of our time as adults in these countries and with our small children, but they don't necessarily remember everything, right? So photos and videos are so important.
When we moved away the first time, somebody gave my oldest daughter a book, and they had her put her friends in the book and then left blank pages for her to put new friends in. And I think that the same thing works when you've moved back, reminding them that they can make new friends. But one of our favorite things to do is like to go to an Asian market, and the things that we thought smelled horrible when we were living in China are now a fond smell. It still stinks, but the fish smell still stinks to me, but it's like, oh, yay.
Yes.
It smells like home. And then we also go through the Chinese pavilion at Epcot, and we'll just go and listen to people speaking in Mandarin and or in an Asian market, and just encouraging people to hear it and embrace the past and the future and the present.
Here is one of my favorite metaphors from our guest Val Robb, a Canadian-born New Zealander, writer and writing coach, and teacher who homeschooled for 25 years, all through 11 international moves. She shared her stories of moving to China in episode 19 and then moving back to New Zealand in episode 20. Let's hear what she shared with us.
I think I'd say in the midst of the challenges transition, sink your roots deep in God, learning that He is your ultimate home and stability. He never changes. And I'd also encourage people to spread their roots wide in community, valuing relationships and not being afraid to ask for help when they need it, as well as welcoming and comforting others who are going through cultural adjustments, sharing the comfort they've received. Not long ago, I heard a podcast speaker talking about how the giant sequoias, some of the largest trees in the world, have surprisingly shallow roots compared to their height. But what makes them strong is that their roots go extremely wide. And not only that, when planted together, their root systems intertwine and give each other extra strength. And I know that the friendships that we formed with Chinese and international friends overseas strengthen us then and continue to strengthen and enrich us now.
And now we have Stanley Ameleye Asasu, doctor and writer from Ghana, Africa. This excerpt is from his stories to Wuhan in episode 25, and then his return to Ghana in episode 26. He has sage wisdom about how valuable it is to see and learn from other places.
Well, I wanted to say that through it all, what I have learned is exposure shapes perspective, and that perspective also shapes attitudes, and attitudes shape experiences.
Wow.
For the people.
That's really good.
Hey, thank you.
We'll quote you on that one. Don't worry.
Yes, for sure.
So, for those who probably might not have traveled someplace else outside of their home countries, I would say to travel if they can, but more importantly, to learn as much as they can when they do travel, because just as Louis Armstrong sang in his song, it's a really, really wonderful world, and there's so much out there to learn.
Next is Stacy Hipwood, international teacher, mother, and wife who is passionate about Kenya and holding up her family. In episode 27, Stacy shared about moving from California to Kenya, and in episode 28 about her family's healing after her husband's brain aneurysm sent them moving back to California. In episode 28, Stacy encourages people to go abroad, but also to hold their plans lightly.
I would say I think everybody, if at all possible, needs to go abroad at some point and spend time in another culture. I'm so for that, even if it's just a summer. And then I think the biggest thing is just in this whole going abroad, coming back, is just giving yourself grace. Just lots and lots and lots of grace. To not have expectations that you're going to react a certain way or you're going to handle something a certain way. Just a lot of grace. And then I think also I've learned through all this just to hold my hands wide open, because I had said, oh, I'm never going to move back to Fresno. Like, I'll never live in not because I hate Fresno. It's not, I remember thinking, if we ever moved from here, we'd I'd want to go to England because I want to move forward. I don't want to go, and I'm like, yeah, never say never. You just have no idea what's going to happen. And, God has his plans, and not trying to hold on tightly, because Terry gets really sad about that we don't live there anymore. He really loved it. He lived there 18 years and he loved it. Loved it.
Yeah.
So, and I tell him, I said, but look, I said, you got to live there 18 years. Like, no one can take that away from you. What a gift.
Yeah.
We're not there still, but you had that. You did that,
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't want to just grieve that, we lost something we loved, but then going, wow, look what we had. Look what we were able to experience.
Holding on to the memories and the experience.
Right. And we're richer because of it.
Now, let's listen to a portion of Monica Baez's episode 22 about moving to the U.S. and then her return to Ecuador in episode 23. Monica is an international baccalaureate psychology teacher and foodie who spent 6 years in the U.S. before returning to Ecuador. She encourages us that the risks are worth taking.
I guess I think of just being open and willing to take risks. I know not all of them will end with a beautiful bow at the end. Some things are difficult, and not everybody that goes abroad or comes back will have a good experience. But one of the things that the IB says is that they hope their students will be risk takers. And I think it's good to know which risks are worth taking. But I think definitely opening your mind to a new way of seeing the world is for sure a risk that's worth taking. And it certainly was for me.
Now let's take a listen to Joanna, our most recent guest. Joanna Mead is an international baccalaureate technology and math teacher originally from Trinidad. In episode 30, she shared stories of moving from Trinidad to the US and then to Japan and then to China. In episode 31, she shared about moving back to Trinidad for a season. Here's her wisdom about encouraging us to be open to the unexpected.
I would say expect the unexpected. Like, don't go in making a plan for this is the way it's going to be done. Because every country or the environment or even the new workers and new people you meet are totally different. And if you go in with your own mindset, then it makes the transitioning more difficult. But what eventually I realized helped with the transitioning the most was joining like different groups. So I had joined like a fitness group that met every day, and and then you felt like you're more part of the community. I also made sure I listened to radio, like talk shows and stuff, so I could get re-immersed into what's popular. The commercials and the advertisements and stuff you saw everywhere also helped with that. But I would say, I think the thing that helped was just that open-minded thought. Like, don't go thinking that this is the way it used to be, so it's the same again. Like, just go expecting and trying to understand
Right.
and ask questions, just be open
Yeah.
and don't expect anything.
Finally, we're going way back to the beginning of our podcast with advice from Tracy. Tracy is an international educator, mom of 3 boys, and global history buff who lived and worked in China for 8 years. Her stories about moving to China were our very first episodes. Let's listen to what Tracy told us in episode 2 about coming back to our home countries.
I want to tell them that it takes a long time to adjust back and make a new normal. So please know that what you are going through might be hard, and it is hard, and to name it so. And find a person to talk to. Find a friend, find somebody who's had a similar overseas experience. And it's just so important to process all this. And it's so valuable. What you've gone through is so valuable. And if you need counseling, get professional counseling, because we want to be healthy people with all of this baggage that we have, but we want to unpack it because we want to hang it up again in wherever we are, right? Because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Whatever baggage we have needs to be unpacked, aired out, and unwrinkled, and sometimes it takes time to iron all that stuff out. I also, I loved getting to know my global neighbors, overseas. And we have global neighbors in our home countries too. And so I think that I want to encourage you to for whatever you have, like you've got these gifts now of these experiences, and to share that and to try to figure out how can you apply those gifts to where you are right now, because they're valuable and you don't want to hide them. Melissa and I began this podcast for several reasons. One of them is to encourage those who are returning to their home countries after an extended time abroad, just like Melissa did for me many years ago.
We also know that some of you have been back in your passport country for years, and this podcast has helped you reconnect with important parts of your story that may have been forgotten or still need some love and healing.
We hope that these stories offer not only more tools for your toolbox of transition or remembering, but also jewels in your treasure box, which your tools are making. You and those who you influence are the treasure. And let's keep sharing these gems of stories and the stories from this podcast along with your own to make the world a shining place.
As we wrap up season 2 of the Round Trip Stories podcast, we want to hear from you. Would you fill out our listener survey so we can learn more about you? We want to know about you, your family and faith, where you live, your favorite episodes, and we'd love to hear your suggestions and ideas for us for the future. Look for the survey link in the show notes or go to roundtripstories.com. We can't wait to hear from you. As this episode and season 2 of the Round Trip Stories podcast lands, we hope all of these stories have encouraged you, helped you find some more of your belongings, and made your baggage a little lighter.
Thanks so much for listening, friends. We'll see you next time.